Horror Lies.
Hey guys, here we are with BodyBags, episode 3 tonight. We'll be looking at foreign horror movies, our top 5. Might not necessarily be our top 5 in terms of best movies, but at least that's me. I don't know how these guys are, but doing it. But really, it is a top 5. So hopefully, we didn't share notes or anything. So I'm sure we'll all three of us have completely different lists, and so that ought to be a good thing for anyone watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just basically approached it. I don't know, when I was going through the trailers. I actually watched the trailers to my top 5 a little bit of before we got on and stuff, and I did start to see patterns and themes in my 5. So they're not like necessarily like, I can't say like, well, this is my top 5, number 5, down through, but they each of them do stand out in very particular ways. So so that'll be fun sort of going through as we do that. Anything in particular guide you, Glenn, when you were choosing?
For me, I gave myself a couple of rules. One, I said no Italian stuff, and I said that mainly because you want good Italian horror. Watch the Fulci show that we did last time. You'll find it in there. Also, I went with I tried not to double up on any countries. So if I have something from, say, I don't know, like say I had something from Spain, I wouldn't then have another thing from Spain. It would be from other places. And also, I tried to pick movies that, I like on my channel and on BodyBags, I've, covered a decent amount of foreign films. I tried to go with stuff that either I hadn't done on those or ones that nobody really talks about anymore. And and when we get to our honorable mentions, I have an example in there, and you'll see what I mean when we get to that.
Sweet. What about you, Lonnie?
Well, I kind of followed a similar path like what Glenn did, in that I decided no Italian horror movies. The only reason why is just because it just seems like it's too easy. I wanted to set myself a challenge in that I wanted to try to pick 5 countries that were different, and it's just like Italian is so easy to go for. And I was like, but like, what about try some other countries, try, like one of mine is like South Korea, one is like France and everything else, and that was kind of it. Just try like, open up a little bit, try to expand, on different areas of the world where movies are coming from. And also too, yeah, I didn't want to do like, too many movies from one particular country or anything like that. But yeah, I just wanted to do it more like that, just do it as more of a challenge and everything. So yeah, that's pretty much the way I went about it.
Good. Yeah, I feel pretty confident that our list will be completely different from one another, and that's actually really great for those watching. So, but we thought we'd start off real quick with just a quick little round of new things we might have watched. And I was in the theater tonight with my son watching In a Violent Nature.
Ooh.
Finally saw that, and it is a Canadian film. So, that'll just be one of my honorable mentions when we start that jazz. But I was, it was weird. It's sort of, I don't know. It's like when I first saw the trailer for the very first time, I was freaking geeked out, man. Like, I couldn't wait to see it. And I don't know what happened. I sort of had a weird sort of, I really don't care if I see it. If I do, I'll watch it whenever Sam buys it. And so he's been trying to get me to go, and then today of all days, I don't know what it was, today he's like, let's go, we got to go see it. And I'm like, all right. So we went. I was pretty freaking impressed, man. I enjoyed it. I think because I went in like really, really, and I don't think you should necessarily, but I went in with really low expectations of what I was going to see. But if I can just, I think we've all heard these things a little bit, but it is, I think, my personal feeling is it is a love letter to the Friday franchise. That Friday's all over that thing. I mean, it is. I mean, and there's a scene at the end of the movie um, that it really is a certain car ride you're in that really does remind you of a certain car ride that sort of almost opens up the first film, except different perspectives. But it's not what you think it is. It's not what it ends up being what you think it is, but it does start to play with your head a little bit. And it does make you wonder, like, oh, that would be an interact. Well, no, that's too cliche. No. And it doesn't end up being what it. But the whole POV over the shoulder and everything is not through the. If you guys, neither of you seen it?
I haven't seen it. No.
Okay. That's not through the whole movie. There's a bit of it. There's quite a bit of it. There's quite a bit of taking in nature. Quite a bit of taking in it. But some of that reminds you of Friday too, just not as drawn out. Like this is Star Trek the motion picture where you get like a 25-minute let's go see the Enterprise sequence. Like literally. So we're going for 25 minutes walking through a patch of woods. Not really 25 minutes. I'm exaggerating. But it does build up some tension a little bit. It works pretty good. But I thought what was really I thought it was neat how they sort of open it, how our main antagonist sort of is brought to be. I thought that was kind of cool. I thought it was really cool. There's a scene that sort of plays on a cliches of 80s horror in the sense that you get that scene around the campfire.
Oh yeah, I love that.
You get, and I thought this was because I think if I remember it was a cameras continually moving around the group.
Oh, nice.
And there's a moment where our antagonist is standing just in the wood line, and you can see him.
Oh,
and,
nice.
And and they're like and they get together for this little little picture of themselves as a group, which kind of just oozed 80s campfires. So it was kind of like the movie really was sort of. I thought this movie did a better job paying a compliment to 80s horror without being 80s horror. Because it's not. I mean, it's not 80s. I mean, it's I'm not sure what the time period is supposed to be exactly, but it plays on certain things that it's I don't know. I thought it really did some things really, really well. And there's it's funny, our antagonist, I don't know what he's like, he sort of hits this one thing and then without finishing moves on to another, but circles round to hit that thing again, sort of. So this continue. It was just, I don't know, I got a really big kick out of how they thought their way through it. And there was one scene in particular that I thought, boy, maybe I should turn this down a bit. I kind of thought to myself, seeing a scene like that with Jason would have been kind of intriguing. I won't say what it is, let you guys see it, but it is a very intriguing. There's a few really intriguing moments. So, anyways, I mean, all that to say, I really got a kick out of it. I was pretty well, especially the end too.
Tell me this: were there any scenes, like we saw in like the people talking about it, like people are throwing up in the cinema?
That's ridiculous. That's the stupidest junk I've ever heard in my life. Half the junk was off screen. These people are freaking. Oh, I almost said a bad word. These people are. Now there is one scene. I will say this: there is one scene, the yoga scene, I think that's what it's being called now. The
Mm.
yoga scene. That was a pretty gnarly scene. That is definitely in the that is in the uh, that's in the permanent, I think, top 10 best moments I've seen in a slasher in a while. That was good. Some of the kills sort of harken back to Friday without being a copy,
Mm.
but you got the vibe that this almost feels Friday. This feels Friday, man. This feels like it should be Jason doing this. So they didn't. It didn't. Yeah, and there was only one scene I remember that involved a kill. It could have been freaking gnarly, man. I mean, it could have freaking upset some stomachs. I think maybe if they would have just treated it right, and they didn't. So it sort of kind of got lost on itself. Unfortunately, it doesn't. It never. Well, you just think about the buzzsaw scene from Absurd. You know,
Oh,
it could have been that level or better, and it just I don't know. I almost just kind of got the feeling I was thinking to myself in the theater, did the director really know what he wanted here? Like, I wasn't sure if he knew what he wanted because
mm.
it's I don't know. It was just sort of I don't know if it necessarily peters out on itself, but it's I don't know. When you've seen some of the movies we've seen,
Did it
you
feel
you,
like
you
that scene was supposed to be in there? Or did it feel like it had been cut down?
I mean,
That
I
is,
guess
you know, is a thing we got.
yeah.
Companies coming in and saying like, hey, this, don't
It,
take some of this out and everything.
look, if this guy ever saw like any of the movies like Absurd or movies that entertain or even Intruder, any of the scenes like that, it's always possible that he entertained quite a you know brutal concept, but just maybe never saw itself materialized quite like that. There were that moment right there could have been a doozy. There was yeah, but I was thinking to myself, seriously, people come on, stop, just stop with the throwing up in the theater, stop. i never once I never once felt i don't I don't think I did, not really one time. There was there was one pretty, even that yoga scene. I was more like intrigued, like, where are we going with this?
Hmm.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I've seen that one before.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
that was wow. Um, yeah, so and the song that runs you through the credits is freaking one for the ages. It's so freaking awesome. Yeah, it was a good time. I mean, it's not like I don't know if it'll go down in history as it's not going to be one of the greatest slashers ever, but I think it's you do have to be a little patient with it though. I'll say that, just because some of the scenes are a little bit, and I'm not saying in a negative way, but they're a little drawn out. Um,
Well,
it
yeah.
it just it just takes its time. That's all. It just wants to take its time, and so you just got to be, you know. I would say this. I would agree with one reviewer I'd seen said, if you don't probably don't want to put this in if you've never seen it before too late at night if you're really exhausted. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, But and even then though, I don't know how agreeable I was to that idea having just seen it, because I don't know, just with the cinematography and the woods and everything, even as quiet as it is sometimes, I just fell into it. I just kind of like, all right, I'm in for the ride. Let's go. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So I finally got to see In a Violent Nature. Really do highly suggest anyone watching this, you haven't seen it and you got a chance before it leaves theaters, go see it. Definitely go see it. But, go in with realistic expectations,
Yeah.
you know. But so I was yeah. So Glenn, you saw, what did you see?
Oh yeah, I finally got around to seeing Memories of Murder by Bong Joon-ho. Um, he directed The Host, and he did Snowpiercer and a bunch of other stuff. Um, Parasite. He did Parasite as well. This is one that it's always kind of intrigued me. I mean, mainly, I'll be honest, that cover I found really intriguing. I don't know if you can see it. It's like literally just like some tied up hands and some grass. So I eventually decided to pull the trigger and pick it up, and I'm glad I did, because it's just such a good movie. It's obviously a Korean movie, since Bong Joon-ho, and essentially it's, how can I put it? It's almost like seeing two different types of policing. You have this one guy who's like, literally like, they get somebody and they beat them until they confess everything. As to whether they're guilty or not is kind of doesn't really matter. And this other guy that comes from Seoul that, is more by the book. And you got these murders happening. They happen on a rainy night. Every time it's a rainy night, the victim's always wearing red. And essentially they get like raped and strangled and killed and like left somewhere. And it's a really interesting like murder mystery type thing. And the ending, I'm just gonna say, you know how I am with dark endings. I like dark endings. This has a dark ending. And it's a dark ending that I don't know how to put it without giving it away. It's not a dark ending like the Terminator, where like everybody dies or anything. It's a dark ending where it's like you spent like 2 hours and 40 minutes watching these guys like try to catch this killer and everything, and at the end, none of it mattered. And it was so good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, honestly. I had another movie that I was gonna put into my honorable mentions, and I actually kicked it out for this. But then I thought, you know what, I'll talk about this now. So good, and honestly, there's a feature on the Criterion Blu-ray, and it's just Guillermo del Toro talking about this movie and Bong Joon-ho's, Bong Joon-ho, his directing and everything, and it's beautifully shot and everything, and it's just damn good. So anyone else like me who's been sleeping on this, definitely give it a shot, because it's damn good. Yep.
Well, you, Lonnie.
Let's see. Now, I've been kind of alternating back and forth between books and movies. I've been listening to the audiobook for Robert McCammon's Swan Song. I've been doing that, but also too, the other day I binge watched the Inner Sanctum Mysteries with Lon Chaney. Man, those stories were really good. A lot of them kind of almost follow the same pattern, but they follow the same pattern, but at the same time, it's like you get to see how really versatile of an actor Lon Chaney Jr. was. It's like, man, he had such a leading man quality and everything, and just unfortunately, just as his career went on, he just kind of was always like the crazy guy, like you would see in like Spider Baby or The Haunted Palace or something like that. It's like, man, it's like watching those different stories. Like this man had such range as an actor and everything. So I was watching that, and then actually yesterday, yeah, it was yesterday. I got this in the mail, and I checked it out. It's a Lucio Fulci movie, and this was a bit of a surprise. I got this on 4K. It's The Devil's Honey. Or isn't let me show it. Well, it's probably for the best. If you could see the cover, that's probably for the best. But this was definitely a very different Lucio Fulci movie in that, it's listed as an erotic thriller, but I mean, this movie is very much softcore. One thing picking this up, one thing I was not expecting was to see beaver shots in 4K. I'm not kidding. The story is about this musician, and he's playing the saxophone and stuff. and his girlfriend, she gets turned on whenever he's playing the saxophone and stuff. And there's an infamous scene where he's playing the saxophone, he's like looking at her, and so he kind of goes down, and she ends up spreading her legs, hiking up her skirt, and he's like playing the saxophone right next to her. You know what? So it's kind of like, okay, I didn't know Fulci did this kind of stuff, but I shouldn't be surprised. It's like, I think is there like any kind of genre that Fulci didn't make a movie in? I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if it turned out he did a martial arts movie at some point.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't. It really
Well,
would.
I think For the Apocalypse is one of the most underrated Western ever. I love that freaking movie.
So anyway, so the musician, he gets into an accident, and this doctor comes in, is supposed to try to save his life, but he's like high, he's kind of like on drugs and stuff like this, and he botches the surgery. He ends up killing this guy. And so her, being devastated and everything else, even though their relationship was kind of toxic, she's upset with this doctor, and she feels that he killed her boyfriend. So she's out to try to get revenge on him. And then, so she's like torturing him and stuff like this, but it definitely ends in a way you don't really expect it to go. But so yeah, that was kind of it. Mostly it was Inner Sanctum mysteries and stuff. We just did our theme week for Ghost Hunting Gone Wrong. I saw a movie the other day called Dead Detectives. It's like, if we do another one, it's like I already know which pick mine is going to be, but yeah, just kind of like alternating between like books and movies. Like, probably won't be able to see this either. I just picked this up. It's a book of Tim Burton's poetry called The Melancholy Death of The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy and Other Stories by Tim Burton. So beautiful, but it's a book of his poetry and everything. So that's a movie I'm definitely looking forward to. I may be in the minority, but I'm definitely looking forward to Beetlejuice. I can't wait to see that. I think
Honestly,
that's going to be fun.
From everything I've seen, my expectations are pretty high for it. Because I mean, it seems to nail everything the original had. It seems to be bringing it back, and it seems to be doing it right. So
Yeah.
And it seems like the heart is in the right place. It doesn't feel like a money grab. It feels like it's time to revisit this world that we created back in the day. And I'm cool with that. So
one thing I do appreciate about it though is like I've heard that supposedly Tim Burton said like we're very much gonna try not to use as much CGI as possible. Let's go as much like the original movie. Let's do as much practical effects as we can. Even like the sandworms, let's go back to the stop motion animation like we did before and everything else. Like it's got to try to like fit the exact look and feel of the original movie. So I think that's going to be definitely a nice bonus when that movie comes out. So I'm looking forward to that one. So.
I've said before, like when it comes to certain types of effects, the unreality of them works to its advantage. And that's something like with the sandworms in Beetlejuice, being stop motion and everything. It adds this oddity to it that works with the story and it works with what you're being shown, and it just works. If you had like a glossy, like new Dune level sandworms, would it have the same charm? I don't think it would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I watched Dune Part 2 the other night as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I actually didn't see it in the theater. Really weird for me, considering how big a fan I am. But yeah, I watched it on Blu-ray. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Interesting ending. It's a more truthful to the book ending. This is hardly a surprise for anyone. It ends with dude literally declaring war on the entire universe. And I mean, if you have the balls to end your movie with that, it's like, what are you gonna do? I mean, that's like just that is the end of a movie.
Wow.
And we know another one's being made. It's already in pre-production apparently, so it'll be good. I'm sure of it.
All right. Well, you guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Glenn, go ahead and kick us off with your honorables.
Okay. So should I go through all of my honorables? I got 4 of them. I can go through.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first honorable mention, and this goes kind of into, this isn't in my top 5 because I mention it so often. Martyrs. I love Martyrs. It's so good. Transcendental torture porn. I've heard it described as that, and I honestly believe that. Such a great movie. But like I said, I always talk about it. Whenever anyone's like talking about foreign horror, I always bring up Martyrs. So I decided, not to put it in the top 5. Next up is Pyewacket. This isn't in there for a very simple reason. I live in Canada. This is a Canadian movie. For me, this isn't foreign. So, I felt it was a bit too much of a cop out for me to pick that. Next is honestly one of my favorite movies of all time, Yukio Mishima's Patriotism. If you haven't seen this movie, it's literally, how long is it? It's 29 minutes long, but you watch it, and then if you knew before or if you learn afterwards about Yukio Mishima, the director and the writer, this perfectly recreates what he would himself do in about like 7 years later when he tried to take over the country and then killed himself by cutting his stomach open. Yeah. It's eerie. Just the foreshadowing of what really ends up happening. So I love that. But it's not a horror film. I didn't really think it deserved to be in this list. And Last Up is actually my favorite foreign film of all time. But again, it's not really a horror film, so it didn't go in there. Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon. I love Rashomon. It is. It's my favorite foreign film of all time. I absolutely adore it, but it doesn't belong in this particular list. So that's why it's in honorable mentions. So those were mine.
All right. Well, one I've already talked about. We'll just run with In a Violent Nature. It's a Canadian film, so for me, I mean, it's technically foreign. And that is definitely one that will be in my physical media collection. And I didn't mention this earlier, but I thought it was for me it was enjoyable just seeing a film open up with in the credits with an IFC film, Shudder. It's kind of neat being reminded of that as well. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what they give us on a physical media release on that. Another quick honorable mention. I don't know if this one will end up in anyone's top 5. Actually, I'll be kind of surprised if it doesn't end up on Glenn's, but it might not. It might not. I got this. This is a Taiwan film. Got it from Germany, though, on 4K. And this has to be one of the more brutal viral infection zombie-like kind of movies that we have had in a while. And it's funny how nobody talks about this movie anymore, but The Sadness.
Yeah.
Actually, and nice little digibook with one of our favorite characters.
Oh, our dude.
From that. A nice book that Germany put out. And I thought, I was really, boy, I'll tell you what, this was one of those movies that, I was geared up first time watch. And I was just sort of, huh. I mean, okay. I mean, um, it never really, I don't know. Movies, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. If he would have pulled a Fulci when he did this movie, there are
Mhm.
some scenes in here that, I mean, there is the eye socket scene that's a little disturbing. There is, there's a few scenes in there, but that one is a fun film, and I was a little surprised to see that the director has absolutely nothing in as far as anything new coming out. So I don't know if he's just gonna live off of that for a while. But all right, so my true outside looking into my top five though is it is I couldn't avoid it. It is who I am. But it is an Italian film from 1980. It is one of the films that helped segue me into a world of greater Italian cinema. It helped make my trips to the video store that much more fun. And quite frankly, it it is one of the main reasons why I went region free to begin with, because at the time I did not have the copy of this film in my library until I picked it up off of 88 Films. And of course, it is, The Beast or Anthropophagus. This film, man, a Video Nasties film, and really, really just because of one scene in the movie in particular. Um, I won't I won't beat a dead horse into the ground, but I freaking absolutely love Anthropophagus. Um, got the 80 or the 4K 88 films coming in July, and absurd as well. And I'm looking forward to that. But this represents, again, exploring, foreign film in a video store, which I was really, really fortunate to have a video store that went above and beyond putting a lot of it was Italian, but just putting foreign films on the shelves. And it's I think for me, I have two favorite moments in that film. And that is the infamous wine vat scene when the girl comes right up out of the, just covered in red with a butcher knife up, and the infamous hand through the ceiling when the beast reaches down through the ceiling and grabs her by the hair and just starts to pull her up, and her skin starts to go. And of course, that is a Joe D'Amato film, and um, I still love it, man. I still love it. I can put that movie on anytime and just get a kick out of it, and I cannot wait to see the 4K transfer. I just cannot wait. I cannot wait to see that. But so there we go. Outside looking in. Go ahead, Lonnie.
Okay, let's see some honorable mentions I got. Unfortunately, I do have them. I just was a dope and I didn't remember to bring them with me. So, but I promise I do have them. But one honorable mention for me is the Cornetto trilogy, which is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. And I just love that their take on like Shaun of the Dead, which is a true love letter to zombie films, particularly George Romero, but even, Fulci and everything, just it's such a love letter, and just they do it in such a clever way. And, the blending of humor and horror and everything. And then with like Hot Fuzz, they did, I mean, yeah, it was supposed to be like it was supposed to be kind of like a spoof of like, buddy cop movies, but they also go into, like gothic horror films, giallo. There's definitely shades of giallo in there, especially with the masked hooded killer and everything else. Let's see, evil cult movies and stuff like that. And then, of course, The World's End, which is, about alien invasion and all this kind of stuff. And just all three of those movies to me are just amazing. Like, just they're so good, and I can't believe how well made they are. Another honorable mention I would have to say is probably like Ju-on the Grudge. just that movie, just the atmosphere and everything in it is just wow. And it's slow, but it's just, man, it's like the tension that they build up in that movie is just so amazing. And I just really, oh my God. Then of course, got to have like the Blind Dead movies, Tombs of the Blind Dead and, Return of the Blind Dead and everything. So, um, man, I remember when I first saw Tombs of the Blind Dead, and that was at a time when I was kind of cocky and arrogant. And I didn't think, a lot of stuff could scare me. And I watched that movie, and that movie, just the atmosphere is so unsettling. And then the ending kind of really leaves you, oh God, that's how it ends. Ugh, everybody on the train and all that stuff. And so, just, oh man. And, the sequels too, just, you love the atmosphere and everything that goes into them. And just, wow. Yeah. I mean, I better stop it right there. I could go on, and I probably will if I don't. So I better stop it right now. So yeah, so those are some of my honorable mentions.
Nice.
All right, Glenn, number 5.
Okay, number 5 for me is Spider Forest, a South Korean film, part of, obviously, Tartan Asia Extreme collection. This is a weird film. Essentially, you got this guy, and how can I put it? I'm trying to think of how much I should go into spoilers and everything. I'll make it very simple. He essentially finds like a murder scene in a cabin, and he runs off. He gets attacked there and everything, and he staggers off, and then he gets hit by a car. After that, it's all a mystery about who murdered this person. And then there's time travel involved. There's all sorts psychological aspects to it and everything. It's just a damn weird movie, but a weird movie that draws you in. And it's an example of South Korean horror that nobody talks about. Have either of you ever heard of Spider Forest?
I've heard of it, just I think because you reviewed it.
Exactly. It's nobody really knows about it. It's not talked about Tale of Two Sisters or whatever, or Old Boy, or or any of the the big names in Korean cinema. But it's damn good, and honestly, I recommend anybody that can find a copy to get it, because honestly, these Tartan Asia Extremes go pretty cheap nowadays. So try to pick one up. Spider Forest, so good.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen one of those labels when I've been out and about.
Oh yeah.
All right, number 5. My first stop is France. It was the 101st film I reviewed on BodyBags. Geez, back in 2020, from 1978. And I think I did it because it was I think I did this film because it was a director spotlight for us, Jean Rollin film. And the film never really acted as a segue into other of his films, but I was absolutely just blown away by the grapes of death. And not sure why it's blurred out, but it's just ridiculous. But this man, I'm telling you, and it's his sort of, not really, it's not like his take on Night of the Living Dead. It's it's so much more than that, so much bigger. When our protagonist is forced off a train into this village that's already been consumed by something, I guess something in the grapes and the wine that is sort of spread throughout the village. It is you don't know who's got it, who doesn't got it. The atmosphere is just it's unsettling how some of these people act. And I really, and I'm pretty sure I would have mentioned it in my review, but you almost get sort of an unsettling, sort of a French revolutionary vibe to, in the sense of just the violence that humans are capable of doing to one another. The decapitation scene is freaking unreal. That is unsettling. There really wasn't anything in a violent nature like that to me. The decapitation scene in this movie, that is unsettling. I don't know if you guys remember that scene or not. But it's just this continual hack, 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 and it's like, God, it is nuts, man. It is nuts. I wish him and Joe D'Amato, I wish they did more horror. Because I know they were both known for their other exotic cinema. But I thought Redemption did a really good job on this movie in terms of this release and everything on here. But France knows to, they know how to do things that are a little bit unsettling in film, be it the extreme, French extreme cinema, or just going back into the 70s or whatnot in France. So my first stop is France with the Grapes of Death.
No.
Okay, my first stop is going to be, I'm going to talk about a Spanish director, and hopefully this will show up in some form. Kinda. Got Jess Franco's The Demons.
Nice.
Yeah, this is on here. The thing is I reviewed a few movies of Jess Franco's on the channel before, and one thing that always kind of stood out to me is like, the man had good ideas, and he was a really good filmmaker. But the problem that ended up being was that, okay, like back in the day when Franco first started as a filmmaker and stuff, he would make movies, and like, if you watch some of the movies he made, they weren't that bad, and they were, like his Count Dracula, stuff like this. He made good movies, but what ended up happening over time was that Franco ended up in this thing where it's like he was never not going to make movies. Like, especially when he hooked up with his partner, Lino Romay, like the two of them, they were like, there is no way we are not going to make movies. That's what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. And, Franco, he was a bit of a journeyman director. They could give him, they could give him a job and stuff. Like Harry Allen Towers hired him to do a number of films. But what ended up happening was, as down the line, was that Franco would write these scripts that he wanted to do. And then what they would do is, he would wait for a producer to come up and give him a budget and say, we're going to give you so much money and we want you to make this kind of a movie. And so what Franco would end up doing is like he would take the budget and cut it in half. He would take half of the budget and go make the movie that he was hired to make. And then he would always have a script in his back pocket, and he would go take the rest of the money and go make the movie that he wanted to make. And as a result, the quality on the film suffered. And that was one of the things with this movie. And that's one of the reasons why he kind of, as time went on, he got more and more away from mainstream and just kind of ended up going into sex films. And a lot of it, and that was a lot of it too, is like he knew, like he didn't have a lot of, I don't have much of a budget. I don't have production value. I don't have this or that. But you know what I do have? I got beautiful women willing to take their clothes off. So let's use that, And then, and it's like here, like this movie, The Demons, the storyline is actually a good one. It's just, like you're watching, it's like, if he just like had a little bit more money, he could have executed it better. Because you have these two orphans that are in this nunnery, and one of them is suspected of, being a witch and consorting with the devil. And then, of course, too, these kind of movies, it plays into those themes that you see in zillions of horror movies, especially it was big back in the 60s and the 70s and stuff, where, it was all about how, religious leaders would, they would abuse the power that they have. And, we've seen it movies like Mark of the Devil and, like the movie I just got with Christopher Lee, Night of the Monster, Night of the Blood Monster, something like that. And that was kind of a big thing, and we saw like, Vincent Price's movie, Witchfinder General, like that was a a big horror staple back in those times was, these people that are supposed to lead us and watch over us and guide us and stuff like that, but they're abusing their powers for their own ends and stuff like this, and people hiding behind God to do evil things and stuff like this. Well, and then in the story, the girl, she ends up, one of the girls ends up becoming possessed by the devil, and then she goes and uses that to go get revenge on these people that are taking advantage of everybody and accusing people, torturing people, accusing them of being witches. So it's like it's a good concept and stuff, but just like I said, that was the only bad part, was that Franco just started doing that, was like cutting his budgets in half and everything. And like I said, so then he would give them, here's the movie that you wanted me to make, and they're like, oh, that's it. And it's like, and then they find out, I was like, well, wait a minute, he took half of the money and then went and made this other movie and stuff like that. So, but anyway, so yeah, sorry, long-winded, I know, but yeah, number 5 is going to be Jess Franco, The Demons. Sorry, it's a damn blur. Can't get to.
Yeah, I don't understand why that's. Yeah, it's weird.
I think it's that background blur.
No, I'm trying, but it won't let me turn it off. Anyway.
Okay, for me, my next stop is Argentina with What the Waters Left Behind. This is directed by the Onetti brothers, and the basic idea is this town has been flooded, and it's been like underwater for years or whatever, and then the waters receded, and the town's still pretty much intact, and these people are going through it, but let's just say, let me just hold that like that, and I'll just say, the Argentina Chainsaw Massacre, you could say. I'll say that, and it definitely has Texas Chainsaw feel to it, but it has that foreignness to it. It's like what, almost like, what would Leatherface be if he wasn't like an American? He'd probably be like these guys, honestly. On our film's release, really solid. No one talks about it. There's actually a sequel to this out already, but no one talks about it, and it's a damn shame because it's a fun, mean-spirited. It's just. Let me just put it this way. This is literally the last line of the synopsis. One by one, they soon find that you don't have to go to Texas for a massacre. It lets you know right there exactly where it stands. A really good movie, and honestly, one that more people need to talk about. But yeah, What the Waters Left Behind. I love that title, too. That's my number 4.
All right, number 4. Don't roll your eyes too much at me, but I really gave this a lot of thought, and I think what really made me put this in my top 5 more than anything, I think, was the score. I think it's the greatest. I think it's easily the greatest score ever put to any horror film. It is a film that as a kid, when I first rented this on VHS in its letterboxed form, it opened up for me a new world that I had never experienced before, in terms of I guess a bit of nightmare logic, but a sense of just, I guess I just remember as a kid being freaking really just not so much terrified as mesmerized, and like, just, I don't know. I just can't express how much a part this movie worked in my life at a young age, just opening my eyes up to, I mean, you had Fangoria back in the old days and our gore zones and stuff. And, but I was so fortunate to have this particular movie store, back in the VHS days, that had a sort of like a castle in its corner where all the horror films were. And you sort of kind of went up the stairs, and you probably had, I can't remember, multiple shelves just filled. And a lot of it, a good section of it was foreign. And this movie really, really just, I mean, I don't know. I'm just like, I think I remember as a kid, just like, what am I watching here? And that is the original Suspira from 77, 77 by Dario Argento, in its 4K. The score on this was, I think, number 93 I reviewed for BodyBags. I think we had something special going on that, but anyways, the wire in the room scene is for me one of the most, I say terrifying, but as a kid watching that was pretty brutal, seeing this girl just fall into this room full of wire and not being able to get out of it, and then ultimately ending with her neck getting slashed. But visually, just seeing the girl running through the woods to the Goblin score was nightmare fuel as a kid. And I remember, it was one of those weird moments as a kid where, I kind of wanted my mom to experience it with me. But she was repulsed more than anything. She was repulsed by the letterbox. She couldn't understand why, there was black on top, black on bottom. And of course, Fango's already starting to teach you about this kind of stuff. And as much as I tried to explain it to her, she's just like, I can't watch a movie like this. And she just got up and walked out. I'm like, you're lost, man. But I just remember multiple evenings having rented this. And sometimes I would wait till it got dark outside and it was dark inside, and I would just lay on the carpet floor of my living room. And even though it was an old 25-inch console TV, it didn't matter back then, especially as a kid. Just, I don't know, man. I don't know. There was rarely a film quite like this that really, really, really got me going. And if it wasn't for the likes of these Italian guys, most of my shelves, I would say a good portion of my films are foreign films. I mean, it's the result of men like Dario Argento that, I eventually discovered the Tombs of the Blind Dead and just, realized that horror outside of the boundaries of the United States, more times than not, was better.
Mm-hmm.
It was just better. At least for me, and how I'm wired as a person. I mean, unless I'm 14, sitting in a dark theater watching A Nightmare on Elm Street and all of its beautiful nightmare logic that unfolds, you had to leave the United States to enjoy really incredible movies. And that love for foreign, which you'll see in my last three, it opened up for me. And so I'll always be very, 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 very grateful to these guys for the worlds that they opened up to me. So 77, Suspira, I think it's the greatest score ever put to film. And if I had it on vinyl, I would, man, I just came to imagine what that would sound like on vinyl. Do you have it, Glenn, on vinyl?
Not Suspiria. No, I got Deep Red, and but unfortunately not Suspiria. I missed out on that one.
You have it, Lonnie, or no?
Not on vinyl, but I have it on CD. I do have that.
That's pretty cool. So, anyways, my number 4. All right, Lonnie.
Okay, my number 4 is from South Korea, and I just wish you guys could see this stuff better, but is Train to Busan. So I just think this movie is fantastic. It's it's so crazy. It's got just about everything you could want. It's got good storytelling. It's got good characterization. You have characters in this movie that you could actually feel for. You know, and that's the thing, you know, the movie kind of gives you, you know, you're going through all the emotions. There are characters you love, characters you hate, characters you want to see die, characters you don't want to see die. You know, the storyline is, you know, it's so impressive, you know, and it is an infected, you know, infected people movie, virus movie, and everything else. But you know, but you get fun action scenes, you know, and you get, you know, just really good. What else? You get really good character moments and stuff like that. Especially, you know, like nowadays, like one thing that really, you know, like sticks out to me watching this movie is like nowadays, you know, like every time an action movie or something comes out, it's always got to be about the girl boss and all that kind of stuff. And it's like this here, you know, like you have men and women who are stepping up and you know, fighting, you know, and you got guys who are, you know, like sacrificing themselves and dying heroes and stuff like this. And just the effects and how crazy. And it's like, you know, yeah, it starts off slow, but man, once it gets going, it never lets up, you know, the entire time. It's like it never does. And just and it's just it is so like, you know, you're just kind of like most people, you're like, oh shit, I'm done, this is it, you know, there's no chance, there's no even point even fighting anymore, I'm going down, you know, and stuff like this. And you know, and then the ending, you know, I think of the ending of the movie, like it, you are so wound up and everything else, the ending, you know, you're sitting there like, oh, you know, but just everything about this movie, you know, just the characters and the story and everything, and just, you know, and you know, this the main character in the movie, you know, he starts off, damn it, you know, he starts off as this very selfish guy, and as the movie progresses, he learns to, you know, help people because people are helping him and everything, you know, which is a nice message, you know, like people working together and stuff like that instead of pulling apart. Let's come together, you know, kind of same thing like what Ramiro did in Night of the Living Dead. It's like, you know, you got this group of people, they got the resources and everything they need to survive, but they rather all pull apart and it all comes crashing down on them and stuff like that. So, but yeah, just and the effects in this movie, and even though I know the majority of it all CG and everything else, but it's utilized quite well. At least in my opinion, it is. And just, you know, and it's just wow. But yeah, that's gonna probably be my number 4 from South Korea's Train to Busan.
I want to say just one thing on that. You know, I just introduced my 6-year-old to that just a few days ago, actually. And talk about characters and how well they're written. You got the business guy, the antagonist that you just love to hate.
Yeah.
My 6-year-old is, when is he gonna die? When is something going to happen to him? You shouldn't, you know, and you know, but it gave me a chance to, you know, explain to him, well, you know why he's doing what he's doing, don't you? And it's like, no, I don't. And it's because he's scared, and that is what scared people do sometimes. But yeah, that those movies are written so well that they do really teach the variedness of human emotion and what we do and not do and why, what motivates us. Kind of cool. But so yeah, he got to experience that for the first time the other day, so that's cool.
Very
But
nice.
even still, like near the end of the movie, you know, when you know one of the characters is bitten, he realizes he has to sacrifice himself and everything else, and you're sitting there like watching. It's like, oh man, it's already hard enough. But then he starts, like, as he's ready to die, you know, he starts remembering like holding his baby, and you're like, oh come on, man, this is hard enough, man, damn, man, give me some hope here, you know. But it's such a well told story. It's just so well made. But so yeah, that's my number 4.
Nice. For my number 3, I am heading over to France with Incident in Ghostland. Nice. No,
Nice.
this is such a good movie. Directed by Pascal Lagui. The guy that directed Martyrs. So there you go. Really interesting flick. You know, basically it's you got like a home invasion crossed with like this woman who's like a successful horror writer who's writing a book, but not everything is as it appears. And it's just all around let's just say it says it right there on the cover. Escape from your nightmares. I'm not going to say any more. That is a perfect tagline for this movie when you get to kind of the twist, if you will. It's not even really a twist. It happens in like the first like half hour or whatever. But such a good movie, shot beautifully, and it's a perfect example of the level of you know what, might as well while I'm here, I might as well show the alternate cover. You know, it's just an all-around really good movie, and I can't recommend it enough. People just need to, more people need to talk about it, more people need to see it. This needs to be at the level of, you know, things like Ring, things like, you know, The Grudge. You know, you should be talking about Incident in the Ghostland in that same breath. You know, and that's kind of it. So there. Incident in the Ghostlands, my number 3.
Nice. My number 3 was I think this was my 42nd film I reviewed. We're going to the UK on number 3. And this is a film, I got to tell a little bit of the story of it, but I'll just go ahead and put it up there. It is Horror on Snape Island, aka Tower of Evil, from the UK. Island horror, man. Anyone who's followed me on BodyBags long enough knows there's certain things I do love. Island horror is one of those things. But this movie has a special attachment to me because I started imagining what this movie was like well before I ever got to see this movie. My dad, being stationed in Okinawa during Vietnam, was a mechanic, worked on the jets on Okinawa, and he's saw a lot of people come through and leave, come out, and but he would tell me, when they would go into the theater to watch movies occasionally, he would tell me about this movie. Now, he remembered it as Horror on Snake Island. That's how he remembered it. But he would tell me about, various scenes from the movie, and my imagination would get lit up. One of them was this scene where our main characters are in this one room in the lighthouse, and this harpoon comes out of nowhere and impales someone against the wall. And scenes like that, my dad would just be like, God, I was freaked out and jumped out of my seat, and it was one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in my life. And I heard that more than once from my dad growing up. But as a kid, you kind of imagine that stuff. You imagine that. And as the internet is starting to open up in a new way, allowing us to be able to really search for things, look for things for the first time ever, I started to look for this movie called Horror on Snake Island. Now, my dad was never really big into collecting physical media. He spent more time just taping things off of TV and stuff and building up that kind of VCR collection, right? And so I started looking for this movie. Now, of course, looking for it under the title of Horror on Snake Island, never finding it. And anytime I saw a movie that come up that had any type of close related title, I would read the synopsis and no, that's not it, and then I would give up. A year or two would roll by, and then suddenly I was looking for something, and I would spend time, and this went on and on and on over years. And we must have got to the point where the internet was finally starting to come into its own a little bit. And I was looking for it one time, and I must have been, on page number of the search pages. I must have been on page 60 or 70 something. I mean, I was deep down, and all of a sudden this title comes up, Horror on Snape Island. And it just kind of caught my attention. And so I started to read the synopsis. I'm like, wait a minute. this is kind of sounding like the movie my dad told me about. So long story sort of brought down. I gave him a call and I just like, okay, you got to just listen to this. And so I just started reading everything that I could see on the internet, whatever that page was I was looking at. And I must have hit one or two pivotal scenes. And my dad's like, that's it. That's it. That's the movie I saw in Okinawa. That's the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life. And I said, Dad, it's not horror on Snake Island. It's horror on Snape Island. Snape. And so we got a laugh. So, but anyways, I bought 2 copies on Blue. I remember who put this. Scorpion put this out. I sent him a copy for his birthday, and it was the first time that he got to revisit it since those days in Okinawa. He had never seen it again. And I don't know. I don't think this ever got play on HBO or any of the stations we would have had way back in the day. This was a lost classic for him. And so when he got it for his birthday, and I got myself a copy because I had to, for the first time, see what he had experienced. It was, and that really began in earnest, me just starting to find things for the, and of course things would get easier on the internet as Amazon and everything sort of evolves to what it is today. But back in the day, it was not easy in the really early days of the internet. It was a real challenge to find some things. And I don't know if you guys remember the old days where it would take like all night for you to download a trailer so you could watch it in the morning.
Oh,
I mean, we've come a long ways, boy. So, anyways, and of course, if you're looking for someone who is well endowed, opening scene of a girl running across, almost, I think, fully nude. But this is just a great little island horror piece from the UK, and I always call it horror on Snape Island, but it's just one of those things that led on just by stories my dad told me, and so kind of has a little close place in my heart. So that's my number 3.
Okay. Well, for my number 3, I'm going down under from Australia. I think I can't tell. It's so small in here. I can't tell. It's either 2005 or 2006, but I'm going with Wolf Creek.
Oh, nice.
And I don't know what it was. Just, I remember, years back, one night I was up late. I was just, watching stuff on TV. This is, we still had like, direct TV and everything. And I was looking, it's like, I've heard of that movie Wolf Creek, I was like, I'm kind of curious. So I started watching it and just, I don't know what it was about this movie. This movie just sucked me right in. And even though it's a slow build and, but just, man, and then, to me too, I love the fact that, they're trying to make a new horror icon out of the character Mick Taylor, played by John Jarrett. This is the movie they introduced me to him. And just, just the story about it just really suckered me in. And then also too, come to find out that it's based on the true story of Ivan Milat, who they called the backpacker killer, who in Australia, for a number of years, he was going around murdering, tourists and stuff like this and stealing their stuff and just, and also too, just I am such a sucker for like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original.
Mhm.
And this does have like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre almost feel to it, and just also too like Glenn's always talking about like movies that are just bleak and downer ending and stuff like this is like one of the few movies that like the ending of this is so bleak and everything else is like, I mean, I guess there's a little bit of hope because the guy survives at the end, but still, but just like, oh man, it's vicious and brutal and just like I said, just John Jarrett playing Mick Taylor, like he's got that real, like he could be like the next Freddy Krueger almost, and stuff like that, and just like like he even does, like the part where they're doing the whole Crocodile Dundee thing, it's like she's got the pocket knife and everything else. And like, he's like, lucky little mate said, that's not a knife. This is a knife, and hacks her fingers off and everything else, like all in this. And just kind of like the whole idea that, that he's out there in the Aus, and I think that's another thing that's super appealing about it too. The idea, because the Australian outback is so huge and it's so vast and everything, and is considered like this very scary place to begin with, and people are so worried about being, like it would be. Everybody's like, oh my God, it would be nothing to be lost in the Australian outback and never be heard from again, and stuff like this, and like, but just just the writing and everything else. Just I like the main characters and everything. There was a little bit of a love triangle that was kind of a little bit unnecessary, but just once I saw this movie and this, I don't know, it just hooked me in. And then I saw the TV series. Wolf Creek 2 is amazing. If you haven't seen it, Wolf Creek 2, that's even more gorier. It's almost like, in a way, like, remember how, like, you watch the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and it's not particularly bloody or violent, but then you watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and it's gore galore. It's like, kind of felt the same thing like with this. It's like, this is, bloody and gory in some spots, but get to, like, Wolf Creek 2, where he's like, cutting this guy to pieces on the back of his truck and everything else. And, he even cuts his penis off. And he's like, there you go. The dogs will like that, and stuff. Cutting his belt, pulling out his guts and everything else. And just like, but yeah, just, man, this movie just, like, it just won me over. But so from Australia for my number 3, I gotta go with Wolf Creek.
Nice.
For my number 2, we are heading over to Japan from Kanado Shindo, from Shindo, from 1964. We got Onibaba.
Oh.
Onibaba is a classic. There's a release from Criterion for the US and everything. This particular one's from Eureka, from UK. But basic plot is it's during wartime, and you got this woman and her daughter-in-law, and they're killing and robbing samurai that are coming back from the war. So they're heading back. They kill them and and take all their stuff. In the meantime, it turns out like her husband is like dead. So the daughter-in-law's husband is dead. So she ends up starting like an affair up with some other guy. The mother-in-law doesn't like this, so she puts on this mask, which she got off of a samurai, and it's like I'm a ghost, I'm gonna scare you sort of thing. But eventually this mask just won't come off anymore. So it's never really explained why it won't come off. It's kind of creepy. This is a movie that is very, very, how can I put it? The shots are beautiful, and the atmosphere that's built by nothing. There are shots in this just of like reeds, and it builds this atmosphere. It's a bunch of reeds. That shouldn't be building atmosphere, but it does, and it's so solid and so good. Like, again, if anyone hasn't seen Onibaba, you have done yourself a serious disservice. See it. See it. It commands you to see it. So there's my number 2.
Awesome. All right, man. Number 2, going to Germany. I first reviewed this. This was number 48. No, 48. No, I'm sorry. 18. It was 18. from 1983 from Germany. I think it was Serial Killer Week, or Serial Killers Based on Real People Week we did in BodyBags. And of course, we're talking Angst with Erwin Leda, our ghost from Das Boot, one of the greatest World War II U-boat movies ever. Gerald Cargill, the director. This is funny little story about this. There have been movies that I have purposefully, and cult epics just did an absolutely fantastic job. The book that's in there is insane. And a lot of it is just directed at the real life serial killer that he plays. And a lot of the movie is just the failure of the institutional system in Germany, reform prison system, where they just let this guy back out. And this guy's not out for 2 seconds, and he's already going right back to what he did before, which is just, really insane. But I had avoided this movie. I think it was covered on the 22 Shots of Moods and Horror. But movies like this, sometimes I don't know if I don't catch it the right way, I'll just sort of just throw it by the wayside and just not go out of my way. But the fact that and this is a nice shout out to BodyBags, because over the course, I think I'm almost at 300 reviews now, which you might already be there, Glenn. And Lonnie, you got to be up there too. But theme weeks is sometimes has exposed me to some films that normally I might not have seen. And Angst is one of those movies that, quite honestly, I don't know if I ever would have seen. And I think two of the most powerful movies of this genre is this and Henry, which I did see as a kid. That's one movie I saw way too young as a kid. I had no business bringing that home on VHS, but I did. And but when I sat there and I watched this for the first time, the score, I think the guy from Tangerine Dream does the score, the cinematography. He was an experimentalist in terms of animator experimentalist. I'm not even going to try to say his name. But the cinematography, almost from a first person perspective, at times very shaky, very erratic, very just almost, I don't know what you guys think about Angst, but there are times that, it does get a little nauseating. And you're thinking about, this guy did this. He did this.
Mm-hmm.
But if I always thought too, when I after seeing it, I thought, or as I'm watching it, I thought, holy crap, that's Billy from Black Christmas. This is Billy. He acts just like, I could see Billy acting or doing this, instead of hiding up in the attic and everything all the time, not really getting to see them. But Erwin Leder, I freaking love him in Das Boot. And to see him take on this kind of a role, playing a real serial killer, who did some of the things he did. Angst really, it really opened up my eyes to the I guess the common sense notion of, be careful what you just ignore, or why you think you're ignoring it. Because there are some, and it's not for everyone, but this is such a beautifully shot film, such a beautifully scored film. And I think it really does. The nauseating part about it is not really what you see on screen. It's just the thought in the back of your head that they just let this guy out. They just assumed, oh, well, yeah, you've been good. We'll just let you go on out. And then literally what was the first scene we meet him in the diner, when he's chomping down on the sausage links?
I think so, yeah.
And he sees the girl sitting at oh my God, that is just nauseating. But yeah, so, shout out to BodyBags for Real Life Serial Killer Week. This movie just freaking blew me away. And shout out to Cold Epics for just an incredible release. And I was very fortunate to get it with the book still in there. So Angst is my number 2 film.
Okay, for my number 2 film, I'm going to France. This movie is from 1979 from Jean Roland, and it stars my favorite French, I call her my French queen, Brigitte Lahaie, and the movie is Fascination. And this here, I really, really adore this movie. It's like, the thing was like I discovered Brigitte Lahaie movies in my teenage years, as a lot of people did on late night Cinemax. And so I was just blown away. I just thought she's like one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my entire life. And I wanted to see everything that she was ever in. And then I finally got around to watching this movie. And this one definitely stands out as one of my favorites. I mean, it's artwork, yeah, but that's supposed to be her with the scythe there. And I just realized, like not just looking at her, but I liked the idea behind the story too. And it started getting me into Jean Roland films with, the stories about this guy. He's working with these people. They steal, I forget, it was money or diamonds or something like that. And so he ends up backstabbing them and tries to take it for himself. And so he goes and he finds this, chateau. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And then he goes in and he sees these 2 beautiful women there. And that's the problem, if you get to see it. But it's like, that was like a trope that Jean Roland did in a lot of his films. Like his thing was that he was really into like gothic horror, like the old like Universal stuff, vampires and gothic castles and gothic settings and things like this. And he wrote a number of books as well as making movies where he would incorporate these 2, he always called them like the 2 orphans. And they were 2, sometimes they would be sisters, sometimes not. Sometimes they'd be lesbian lovers, sometimes not. And in this story in particular, they're 2 lesbian lovers, and they're watching over this chateau. So he comes in and he's like, I just need to hang here until, nightfall. I got these people looking for me and everything else. And the girls are saying like, no, they're kind of giving him these ominous warnings and stuff like that. No, you need to go. You need to be gone by nightfall, and all this kind of stuff. And, I love that. I love like when, you get like a good, like a good atmospheric piece, where people are in a situation and they're like, you must leave by such and such a time, otherwise something really horrible is coming for you. And, I always like that storyline, and then, so then of course, like, the people that he betrayed, they come and everything else. And so they dispatch them, but it's still, then you come to find out actually like he needs to go because, night is falling and this group of vampires are coming in. If they see this guy here, they're going to tear him apart and all this stuff. But just the atmosphere. And I mean, obviously, of course, the beautiful woman, that certainly helps, but just, I liked a lot of Roland's story ideas, and this one was definitely just one of my favorites. And I like the way it ended and everything else. And but yeah, so I would have to say, yeah, probably from my number 2 from France, yeah, Brigitte Lahaie and Jean Roland's Fascination.
Nice.
Okay. For my number 1, I'm going to my home country of Great Britain. I'm going with the mighty Ghost Watch.
That's a good one.
Ghost Watch is so good. Like, basically, it's a mockumentary about like a haunted like house, and it's done on like a reality show. Like people are going, oh, we're gonna look at this house that's haunted. What makes this unique is the fact that it was actually banned for many years after being first broadcast, because what they did is this: the people in this, Michael Parkinson, Mike Smith, Sarah Green, that's their real names. They're actually people who did this type of show for a living. Like Michael Parkinson was a big name, like, reporter type guy. And they're playing themselves. And a lot of people came into this, I don't want to say thinking it was real, because it didn't go the way of like War of the Worlds, but it bothered enough people that for many years you couldn't find this anywhere. You know, this has since been released, obviously, 101 Films, a nice big, collector's edition. But for many years, you could not find Ghostwatch anywhere. A really creepy movie that doesn't necessarily show a lot, but what it does is just it just works. There's like a whole scene in this movie where like they have it like it's like an actual show. So like they're getting like we're taking a call from such a body who saw something, and it's like you get people like calling into the show and talking to them and everything, and it's like, oh, like I thought I saw something at this point, and so they rewind the video and they look at it, and they, we know now after the fact it was all filmed or whatever, so they were able to maybe switch out the footage or whatever, but you wouldn't see anything, but like if on the first viewing you would have seen it. And this is almost like I'm pretty sure this was sort of, I want to say before VHS, but I don't mean like literally before VHS, but like a lot of people at the time when this came out, what year was it? 92. It was still early enough where not everyone had VCRs at the time. So, you'd be watching something on TV and you'd think you saw something. You couldn't, just like, okay, I'm going to go back and look at that. You had to trust what was going on the screen. That freaked a lot of people out, honestly. I love it. It's so good. It's mockumentary, found footage type stuff at a high point. And it's honestly a scary movie. And I mean, when I'm saying that, I've watched a lot of movies, and I'm saying this one always has creeped me out. There's something to be said for that. But yeah, my number one, Ghostwatch from Great Britain. Awesome flick, and everyone see it.
That was a good idea. Yeah, it is a really good movie. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
Perfect for Halloween.
Perfect
to watch Halloween. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I think it actually aired on Halloween.
Ooh.
And they did it kind of like, so like people were watching it thinking like, oh, because there was a whole series in Britain called Crime Watch. And it was the same basic layout as the show Crime Watch, and that was like a real show looking at different crimes and everything. So Ghost Watch, okay, well we've heard of Crime Watch, now Ghost Watch, okay. Michael Parkinson, okay, yeah, we've seen him on like the news and everything. He's a trusted, Sarah Green, okay, yeah, we've seen her on Crime Watch. Like they're not playing like it's not like Sarah Green playing like Margaret Jones or whatever. It's like Sarah Green playing Sarah Green. So there's that little bit of, at the time it would have been like, am I really seeing something here? Like, is this like a legit thing that we're seeing that's going on? I love it. It's so good, and I'm glad it's finally getting the love it deserves. Yeah, so that's my number one.
All right. My number one. Now, I'm not sure if I was really specific, but I've ordered my top 5 based on when I reviewed it in BodyBags. So kind of coming down. So my number one film I actually reviewed it, was my second film I ever reviewed for BodyBags. And I want to just date for all of us because we've been here for such a long time. But that was on November 21st, 2018. Just a few days before Thanksgiving. I was just so new to this. And I think this movie was we're going to Canada, so we're your neck of the woods, but I thought it would be a nice little bookend since my main outside looking in was Anthropophagus Island Horror. I thought this makes sense that we'll end with I love one of my favorite subgenres, island horror. And if you didn't catch it by now, it's a Paul Lynch film from 1982, my favorite year, island horror. This was such a great movie to rent on VHS. Humongous. I freaking love this movie, man. I used to rent this movie so freaking much. And just the cover art. That was one of the better VHS cover arts. How do you not rent that movie? I mean, how do you just not go in there and you rent that movie? That you rent it. I mean, when you see that cover art, you're like, yeah, that's so yeah, it's God, and it's funny because a scene or two does remind me of Anthropophagus, with them running through the woods and whatnot on the island. And if I remember right, too, 82 seems like they borrowed the end scene. Our main protagonist, our main final girl, has to do. Doesn't she have to do the whole put on a sweater thing kind of thing and make herself look like?
I think so. It's been a
it's been a while since I've actually revisited this. But I don't know, man. Movies like this as a kid, man. Anything. Of course, I think when I was really, really little, I loved anything in the jungle, like the old Tarzan movies, or just if it was set in a jungle. That's kind of evolved into more like island horror type things, and we don't get enough island horror. So pretty good transfer. Better than Hell Night, I think. We usually talk about that one as not a very good transfer. This is Scorpion again, and they did a good. I wasn't. The disc art's really good. I like the disc art, and I love alternative art. In this case, I wasn't a biggest fan of this one.
Yeah, I mean,
it's all right.
See, that would on like a slipcover. You'd have that on a slip, and then slip it and have the proper art on the inside.
Yeah, I do have the slip for this. I just left it up on my shelf, but the slip is the alternative.
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah, I wish the slip would have went with the theatrical or the regular artwork. But that's just me. Yeah, it's such a fun movie from the early 80s. I don't know, man. It was just one of my favorites, and I still shoot. I might pop it in tonight, maybe. It's been a long time since, and I love the trailer. I was just like, hey, all the letters kind of drop, and yeah, it's good stuff. So Canada for number one with some good Canada, and that's how many times as a kid growing up, you kind of know if something's not from your country, but with Canadian films, a lot of times you would have never thought, oh, this is a Canadian movie, or
It's very rare that you see a movie where it's like, oh yeah, that's Canada.
Yeah.
There's Black Christmas where you see it in there, and there's My Bloody Valentine, and that's kind of about it.
One thing, you do have to admit, though, is like, after a while, you can kind of start to pick out, it's like, yeah, I believe this is a Canadian film, because you start to see a lot of like stock actors and actresses.
Yeah.
Okay, that was in a Canadian film, and it's like, okay, they're in this or in this or in this. It's like, yeah, so you kind of like, that's kind of a way to kind of like gauge, like, okay, that's a Canadian film because I recognize that actor, I recognize that actress, and it's like, I know, I said, like Gary Chalk is like a good example of that. I've seen Gary Chalk in like so many movies, and I've seen him like Freddy. He was the cop in Freddy versus Jason. He was in It. He was in, like Small Sacrifice, The Fly 2, and all this kind. I've seen this guy in so many movies, and it's like usually it's like whenever I see him in movies, like Canadian film, because I know him. I see, So after a while, that's like a good way to gauge Canadian films. Like if you start seeing the same performers and stuff like that, it's like, okay, yeah, I know that's Canadian film.
I just love it when I see a Canadian film and I'm like, I know where that is.
That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, I always remember I was watching that. I don't know if you guys remember that TV show, The Strain.
Yep.
In the first season that the club that guy is playing at, that musician guy is playing at, that's Massey Hall. That's literally right across from a diner that I sometimes have gone in and had food at, down in Toronto. It's and I see it, and it's just kind of this nice little like, oh.
That's pretty cool. We got a little bit of a hotbed right where I live. I mean, just literally down the road, where some major scenes for Zombieland were shot.
Oh, no.
And of course, The Walking Dead was filmed down here in Atlanta, and so anytime. But what's really great is when you put in a movie like Cannibal Apocalypse, and there are scenes shot right in Atlanta, and and I think there's a scene where they're driving down the street and they go right by the Varsity, and I'm eating in the Varsity, and so it's always fun when you see that. And in fact, the main house in that movie is I think it's only about 40 minutes from where I live. I've never driven over there to see it, but so number one, humongous from Canada, 1982 film Island Horror.
Okay. Well, for my number one, I'm going to be similar to Glenn in that I went to the UK, but it's not the same movie. For my number one from 1973, The Wicker Man.
Oh,
this movie.
Funny. I was considering that for number one.
Just to me, this movie is a masterpiece. I think it's just brilliant. I like the idea that one of their big ideas for this movie was to show the original Celtic pagan religion as it was, to try to do it as truthfully and honestly as it was. So much so that it intrigued Christopher Lee so much to the point that he did the movie for free. He was just like, he was so into the idea of what they were doing and everything else, and they're like, well, the problem is we'd love to have him, but we can't afford to pay him. And he just he's like, you're going to do this and try to present it as it really is and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, and they're count me in. And and also too, going back to, I think this movie has probably, up until The Mist, this movie probably has one of the most balls to the wall endings I've ever seen in a movie.
I just had a power failure, so
But only happened for a millisecond, so.
Yeah. Let me just swap my phone over here.
But also too, I love the soundtrack in this movie. I have the soundtrack on CD. The songs, it's like, I know some people are really turned off by the idea that this movie is basically a musical, and but they say the idea is he's going to this, they consider themselves very religious and stuff like this, and so in any religious community and stuff like that, music is a big part of their lives, and that makes sense. And but just I just thought that was so amazing, and it's like, gee, they can't imagine, just one of the many reasons why the remake failed was because with this, they're like, we want to show the original Celtic pagan religion as it was, And then when they do the remake, is this guy's like, well, I'm just gonna pull some kind of weird fake religion out of my ass, and there we go. The women with the honey, they're all women with the honey and all this stuff. It's like, oh God, it's like, maybe if you tried doing it, it's like, oh well, but whatever. But just everything about this movie, plus two, you got it certainly doesn't hurt that you have, Britt Eklund and Ingrid Pitt doing nudity in this movie. That definitely helps.
Yeah.
But but just like that to me is like one of the things that's fascinating about is like it's like probably a lot of people would never even think to look up like what are some of the traditions of the old Celtic pagan religion and stuff, and it's like it's here in a movie for you and stuff like this, and the idea the cop is so he's so pro-Christian and everything, and the idea of like that's an interesting idea, this very Christian cop going against this anti-Christian community and stuff like this, and but just man, to me this movie it's just amazing. It's like it's so wonderful, and just the talent in it, it just like I said, Christopher Lee, I mean, my God, just him alone, and you could tell he's invested in this. He's even though he's not getting, he's giving it all he's got and everything. Edward Woodward is like he does such a good job. There's no weak link in the acting in this, and all that kind of stuff. And just like, but yeah, just to me, and this is just a movie I could watch over and over again. And definitely, Hot Fuzz was definitely inspired by this. They say all the time that they were. But so yeah, but just number one for me, yeah, from the UK from 1973, even though you can't see it right now, but from the UK 1973, yeah, The Wicker Man. That's going to be my number one pick.
Just got to ask, what are your thoughts on The Wicker Tree, the sequel?
I need to watch it again. It's like I remember I watched it one time. I was kind of like, okay, that was weird, but it's like maybe I need to sit down and give it another watch. I thought the ending, I was like, okay, that's a shocker ending too, and everything else. Okay, but yeah, I was like, I don't know. It's been a little while since I've seen it. I think I need to revisit it and just like kind of see if it grows on me or see if it's like, no, now I don't like it or whatever. But yeah. I need to try.
What's that movie? I don't know why I can't remember the title, but Lonnie, you said something that made me think about it. Where the it takes place during the Middle Ages, where they go to ascertain whether or not this village is really ruled by a witch or not, and they get there and it is, and they fall to their trap really quickly, even though these are hardcore. Seems like Black is in it. Black's in the title.
Yeah, I know the movie you mean.
Is it Black Death?
I think it might be. It had Sean Bean in it, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Dude, that's got to have a group of one of the more fun group of characters, man. And they're all so freaking hardcore, man. I mean, it's just like they're just going there to just, we're gonna tear this village down. We're gonna grab the witch, and we're gonna bring her back, and it's like, dude, within 5 seconds they're sitting there eating. They've all been poisoned, and next thing you know, they're being. Oh my gosh, that was a surprising movie actually. That sort of came out of left field when that first came out. Remember Black Death? Yeah, that's what it is. Black Death. Interesting. Yeah, I was just thinking about it. I haven't seen The Wicker Tree. Is that kind of close to or not The Wicker Tree? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I've seen The Wicker Man. I haven't seen The Wicker Tree.
Wicker Tree is basically the same sort of idea, except but forget about like a cop and replace it with like some country singing missionaries.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're going there to try to like convert them or whatever, and it's like this isn't going to end well for you.
Doesn't go
well. No. It's the sort of thing. I find it to be definitely the lesser film. I always kind of felt maybe they should have just left the Wicker Man alone. I mean, I know that Robin Hardy, who directed it and like wrote the original book or whatever, wrote The Wicker Tree as well, and wrote it as a sequel to be made and everything. But I don't know. I wish they could have tied it in somehow more to The Wicker Man. Like, because I mean, there is a scene with Christopher Lee in it, isn't there? Like a cameo scene. I would have wished he would have been Lord Summerisle from there, and the idea would be kind of, he's retired or whatever, he's like spent all his time there, and then it's just like this is another group of pagans in another area. They know each other, sort of thing. I wish there'd been a bit more of that, like a bit more connective tissue. But that's just me.
But of course, we can't forget the remake with Nicolas Cage, not the bees.
Honestly, I've been seeing that in thrift stores recently, and I refuse to buy it.
I found it for $2 on Blu-ray in a Goodwill, and it's like it's such a piece of crap, but at the same time, it's like, go ahead and get it. It's good for a conversation starter.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it is.
So last night, and on a kind of a funny note, I watched a comedy the other night that I don't know if I'd ever seen this movie. You're all gonna laugh at me when you like, what? How would it be not ever seen it? Maybe, I don't know. The Three Amigos.
I love The Amigos.
I don't think I'd ever really seen that before, and we had watched something on Prime or something, and I was looking for something else to put on, and my wife saw it. She's like, oh, "We gotta watch The Three Amigos," and I'm like, I said, I normally don't like that kind of comedy at all, but it was John Landis. I didn't realize he directed it.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, let's make it a double feature. We'll watch that, and then I'll put in American Werewolf in London and watch, but I'll be honest, I freaking loved it. I loved it. I really, I could see John Landis. I could see him in that movie working. I was, that was. The
funny thing is, you mentioning that, I'm literally looking at the Blu-ray right now. It's on a shelf right there. I have a little shelf where I just put like movies that eventually I'm going to get around to watching, and I have it like literally.
That scene when they're by the campfire and all the animals congregate while they're singing, that cracked me up.
Right there.
I just wish there was a little bit more closure in the end. Like maybe they, you would have seen them back in Hollywood, getting the big movie deal again or something like that. But
yeah,
I think the idea is like it's supposed to end with like, now they got this taste for adventure, and instead of just being movie stars, like really like going out and helping people and stuff, so they're gonna make that their life. They're gonna go from village to village and stuff like that, and try to help people, and so I think that's what they were going for. So
probably, yeah.
I loved it. I loved it when Chevy Chase, when he starts to realize for the first time that they're using, or maybe it was Steve Martin, when he realizes they're using real bullets.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that. Is you kind of like,
I love that part. It's like, El Guapo, if you move, I'll fill you so full of lead, you're gonna use your dick for a pencil. What does that mean? I don't know.
Oh man.
Yeah, my wife couldn't believe I was laughing as much as I was. That was pretty. I don't normally get into those comedies, but I don't know. Chevy Chase is fun, and
Martin. You guys have heard, right? They're getting a giant 4K box set of Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, I heard that. I want to get that.
Nice.
Oh, how awesome is that? I love the wokeness be damned, Blazing Saddles.
Oh
yeah.
I remember.
So good.
I remember watching that movie as a little kid, and it's like every time, never failed. The farting at the campfire scene always had me just rolling, laughing on the floor. Was never not funny,
Oh yeah.
One last thing. I saw the trailer tonight at the movie theater. I saw the trailer for Bad Boys. I guess it's gonna be their last movie, maybe.
Yeah.
Have you seen the trailer for it?
No.
There is a scene with. I can't believe they did this scene. I don't know how the scene ends in the long run of the scene, but in the trailer, Will Smith and what's his buddy's name? Oh, is it Martin Short? Martin. Yeah, Martin Lawrence. Right. Anyways, they're at this place, and the people there that live there have there's a rebel flag up, and they kind of get into this really awkward situation where they're trying to steal clothes off a laundry line, and they get caught, and and I think it was Will Smith or maybe it was Martin Lawrence was trying to pass off that the shirt that he had was, or one of them had a Reba McEntire shirt on, and he's like, "Oh, okay, so that's your shirt, buddy. Let's start hearing you sing some Reba McEntire." I mean, it's a funny. I don't know how it all goes in the movie, but that would be great if they just went politically incorrect, and that would just be great. Yeah. Just for fun, just for fun. But I thought, I was like, oh, that's cool. Huh. So I don't know.
For a split second there, I thought you were going to say there was a part where Will Smith actually says, "Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth."
Oh, that would be perfect, honestly.
I did see a trailer for something called Oddity, which was new. I hadn't even heard of that or heard anything about that, but that looked like that could be worth a view. So check out, look up Oddity. Trying to think, there must have been like 20 freaking trailers. I can't remember the last time I sat through so many, and most of them were like, whatever. But Oddity looked actually really intriguing. I was hoping to see Longlegs, is it Longlegs? But they didn't play that one. They played Quiet Place Day One, I think, and I don't know. The trailer menu was like all over the map in terms of genre. I mean, it was like, you would have hoped it would have just been a slate of horror films since we're watching In a Violent Nature, but that's. I kind of miss the old days in the movie theater when it's probably too early in the season now, but there got to that point where you started to see the trailers for like the new Saw film coming out at Halloween time, and yeah, I kind of miss those days.
Hell, I always remember, what was it? I went to see a movie, and I went to see it purely because there was a trailer for the first It movie at the beginning of it. The movie itself I went to, I can't even remember what it was.
Huh.
But I remember that was a big thing that they were saying, the trailer is going to premiere at showings of this movie. I can't for the life of me remember what it was, but I was like, I'm going to see that movie so I could see the It trailer. And it was, from what I remember, I think it was a decent enough movie, but I went for the It trailer.
Wow.
Yeah, I got some good horror movies coming out this, In a Violent Nature. I want to see that one. Like the trailer, like I already said earlier, Beetlejuice. I definitely want to see that. I saw the trailer for Maxine, because you had X, then you had Pearl. This is the third part, Maxine. I definitely want to see that. Terrifier 3 is supposed to be coming, and it's like, man, I think this is going to be another good year for horror. There's a lot of out that I want to see.
And at some point, Thanksgiving too.
Yeah. You've heard about Terrifier 3 that they've cast Tom Savini.
Yeah.
Please tell me he's going to do a bit of practical effects for him. That would be cool.
I mean, they have to. I mean, how could they not? It's like, it's Tom Savini.
Even if it's just one scene, man, just one.
Just one little gag or whatever. Just let him do that. Yeah, How can you not?
I thought that was an interesting bit of trivia. You know, when the black phone came out, and come to find out that mask that Ethan Hawke wears, Tom Savini created that.
Huh.
That was his full design and everything else. He built that. It's like, whoa. Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. That's
Yeah.
nice.
I might have
So,
heard that before, but
That's something I want to know, though. How are they making a sequel to that?
the black phone.
Yeah, they're making
Yeah,
Black Phone 2,
yeah,
and
that's true.
has him in it, has Ethan Hawke in it or whatever. Um, his character was very dead at the end of that movie.
Well, you know how that goes.
Yeah, I don't.
That's the best part about. Oh, no, I shouldn't say it like that. I don't mean it like that. But that is an intriguing element, and this is what you would expect. The beginning of In a Violent Nature is sort of kind of the way I want to see whenever we get that new Friday film come
Mhm.
out. It's how I want it to start. Sort of
Nice.
something along the lines of what they do, and you'll see eventually when you see it. Um, um, but yeah, just the intriguing idea that you have an antagonist that you already know right from the get go. You can't kill him, and
Nice.
that's fun when you begin with that premise already. And
Yeah.
you just run, move with it. But they do play with that idea a little bit. That was interesting. But I can't wait till you guys see it and see what you guys think.
I'm definitely going to put that as it comes out. Oh, real quick, one question. What is you guys' opinion now that Mike Flanagan is supposed to be taking over for The Exorcist?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have liked to have seen, you know, the original trilogy
Yeah.
that David Gordon Green that directed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen his thing, but Mike Flanagan, um, it's kind of the closest you can get to horror royalty without, you know, bringing John Carpenter or someone on.
Yeah, he's earned it, man.
Yeah,
But
and
Jason,
honestly, I've enjoyed everything I've seen of his,
Mhm.
so I'm fine with it. You know, um, I'm not sure, but I think actually they're keeping the same story.
no, from what I heard, it's supposed to be no, Mike Flanagan's going to go
They're
do his
gonna
own take. It's going to
Okay.
be so
Well,
yeah.
I'm fine with that as well, but I would have liked to have seen the ending of that story. One way or the other. You know what? Um, David Gordon Green should write a book of the next two movies. Like this is what it was going to be. I wish more people would do that because it, it it is what it is. I love the new Exorcist movie. Honestly, I
You know,
think it's the best one since Part 3. Um,
hey, like I wonder what Jason's take is going to be on because remember Jason is a
Yeah.
very die-hard defender of Exorcist believer.
oh yeah. Well, the thing is, it's you know the problem with Exorcist Believer is people made up their minds beforehand because they didn't like Halloween Ends. So they already decided, oh, we're not going to like this movie. And I think a lot of it was purely just,
Yeah. Well, that's sort of the negative consequence of social media and everything. We can communicate in ways that, as kids, I mean, the only way you're going to communicate to a much larger form is if you wrote your letter into Fangoria and it actually got printed in the pages with a select other letters, but today it's just you can pretty much pronounce death on something before that something even ever comes out. And that is a shame because I know I'm more passionate about Suspiria remake than I am about The Exorcist like him, but it's the same idea though. It's like, how great would it have been to get, Inferno and Mother of Tears from this same director and have
Yeah.
some continuity, and maybe in terms of a trilogy, a better trilogy than unfortunately Dario was able to do, just because the films were spread out too far.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of Mother of Tears at all. I think that movie it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but
It was way too long in between.
yeah. And that's what we could have had with,
right
with,
after Inferno.
and this is what we could have had with this. We could have went right from one to the other, and
Yeah.
it would have been, and you lose that when, and I appreciated Suspire when I, reviewed it recently.
Oh yeah.
I was really surprised, by how I took it in.
I always think with the remake of Suspiria that they, with essentially stripping out the color, and going a more bleak color thing, it made it easier to not compare it to the original. Had they had like all like the vivid bright colors that the original had, and if they'd, if they just remade the original again, you'd have been constantly comparing it. But like essentially, you've got, the same story, but like the flip side almost. The other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Dario gave us the bright colors,
and it had some terrifying moments in there. I mean,
oh, definitely, definitely,
its own take on its own terrifying way. But those witches, man, they were, man, how they messed with those cops, man. Holy crap.
Yeah.
And that poor guy that gets misled back to the place, doesn't know where he's at.
Yeah.
And the witches just come running down oh my god, that's great. That reminds me of Lords of Salem. That scene, man, is so crazy, man. When he realizes the mess he's in and he's not going to get out of there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That scene right there might be it's got to be in a top 5 of Rob Zombie better moments in his films.
Yeah.
That scene when he realizes he ain't getting out of there, and they start messing with him. That's a great moment, man.
It is.
Yeah. So, well, we're only 2 minutes after 2, so you guys want to go ahead and cut this one?
Yeah, I may as well.
There you go, guys. We had our top 5, in a way of speaking, a top 5 of foreign horror films, and so I'm sure this is I think this is easily set up for a volume 2, perhaps down the road at some point, somewhere down the road. There's so much foreign horror out there, but hope you guys enjoyed it, and I know we did. I think some good conversations, and we did not have a same.
No.
No, we didn't have the same one at all. Period. So that's good. That's the way it ought to be. So remember, BodyBags. We all have our channels: Tats, BDG reviews, and VHS82 apostrophe. I do believe all the show notes, I put them down there below. So if you want easy links to our channels, they're just down there below. You can do that. We ask you would. And thank you for all your support. Thank you for listening. If you got all the way to the end of this at 2 hours and 3 minutes and 56 seconds, have a great night. See ya.
See ya.
We might be useful to you.